Good morning, everyone. My name is Kayla Marino, and I'm with the Virginia SBDC Network. For those of you that are not familiar with our organization, the Virginia Small Business Development Center is a partnership between the U.S. Small Business Administration, George Mason University, and local host institutions throughout Virginia. With 27 locations across the Commonwealth, we provide training and technical assistance to small businesses in their local communities. Our one-on-one consulting services are available at no charge. Today's webinar, Retail 3.0, Thriving in the Next Normal, is presented by the Virginia SBDC Network. We are recording today's presentation and it will be posted on our website, virginiasbdc.org. Due to the large number of participants, everyone's microphone is muted, but if you have any questions during the presentation, you can type those into the Q&A box. We've also enabled the live transcript function, which you can show or hide via your meeting controls. Now it is my pleasure to introduce our presenter for today's session, Marc Willson. A published keynote speaker, Marc Willson brings 4 decades of experience to bear helping retail, restaurant, and tourism-related small businesses refine and promote their concepts to the public. In 1975, Marc started his retail career as co-owner of the largest distributor of earth shoes in North America. Since then, he has held executive positions with retailers such as Britches of Georgetown, Crown Books, Wilson's Leather, Circuit City, The Bicycle Exchange, eCampus.com, and Store Tracks Inc. Most recently, he traveled to Dallas, Texas to open the world's first energy efficiency store for Current Energy LLC, a company funded by Ross Perot Jr. And the Willson Company was reestablished in 2009 as a small business strategy consulting group. Marc was contracted by the Virginia SBDC in 2009 as a retail and restaurant industry strategist, developing into a small business revivalist. He's traveled throughout the country delivering the award-winning STAMP program with over 500 seminars and assisting over 3,000 retailers, restaurants, and hospitality businesses. So with that, please join me in welcoming our presenter for today, Marc Willson.
Good morning, everybody. It's always great to be here. I am a morning person, so grab some coffee if you're going to keep up with me. I'm passionate about small businesses and main streets and rural America. And as Kayla said, I've been doing it for 13 years with the SBDC here in Virginia and have taken the STAMP program to 32 other states. So I've seen a lot of main streets. I've learned a lot. I call myself a pollinator because I learn everywhere I go. And I teach in the next town. So we share the information really nationwide. So, you know, I called this webinar Thriving in the Next Normal because it's not a new normal. We've been grappling with the pandemic for over 2 years. I think everybody's really ready to have it behind us. And I'm going to talk as much about what to do going forward as we talk about the pandemic and you know, the COVID and all the things that we've grappled with for the past few years. But the point is that it's the next normal, not the new normal, and it'll be changed forever based on what we've lived through for the last 2 years. And probably the most notable thing is not the introduction, but we've merged the physical store and the internet store into one marketing vehicle. So I'm not here to tell you that small business in small towns across the country will become 70% e-commerce. I just don't think that'll happen. They're certainly predicting that for some of the bigger chains and bigger boxes. And I met with a client last week who's 80% e-commerce, but that's how he started his business. And the reverse rarely happens. If you start as a physical store and you introduce e-commerce, it's sometimes 10%, but not necessarily much higher than that as an e-commerce vehicle. But with that said, let's move into the slides and talk about today's topic. Again, I'm Marc Willson. my last retail gig was 13 years ago, but I was in retail and restaurants and hospitality for about 40 years. And my education is in botany and biology. So I just landed happen chance with this opportunity with Urshu in Washington, D.C. back in the mid 70s. And we made some money doing that. And then I've just stayed in retail and restaurants ever since. So I bring a lot of intellectual property with me in terms of experience. I've touched about what you can touch. I've made every mistake you can make. And that's the best learning vehicle there is to take risks, make mistakes, find the successes, build on those. And you're probably sick of hearing about pivoting. And I would say that you probably pivoted by now or you wouldn't be open. So instead of talking about pivoting, let's talk about how your business has changed over the last 2 years and what you should emphasize, what you should keep doing, what you should stop doing, and how you should proceed going into the rest of 2022 and beyond. So where are we? Where are we? Where have we been? Well, I want to call COVID the elephant in the room, that we have to be aware of it, that we have to provide a safe and clean environment to shop in. We have to take advantage of the amount of business and commerce that can be done on the internet and how many people have learned how to do that over the last 2 years. So I don't want the COVID virus to be the main topic anymore. I want it to be the elephant in the room. I want to be aware of it, but I want to talk about how you've changed your business going forward and how to reignite the excitement of your customers. I'd rather be talking today, and I have one coming up on March 10th through the Roanoke SBDC, but anybody can tune into it, called Eventacular. And it's my seminar about events. I believe that small businesses in small towns throughout the country are event, and the whole town is event driven. So I'd rather be talking about how to get your events going again than, COVID. So it appears as if COVID and Omicron is currently in retreat. We continue to move forward despite setbacks and new variations and new strains and whatnot, but we're not firefighting anymore. We're moving forward, and that's where I want your head to be, is how do I move forward? How do we get past this? How do I take the successes of the fourth quarter of 2021, build on those for a successful 2022? And we're already halfway through February. It's February 15th, so we're halfway through. And we should be climbing in sooner than later into the spring. And I think when the weather changes and continues to be in the 50s and 60s, you're going to find people out and about. People are tired of being held up in their homes. They're tired of working from their homes. Although going forward, many people will continue to work out of their homes. Many businesses have determined that it makes more sense to have their staffs remote. And I think that, one of the stats I heard recently that I think only 30% of the office complexes in Washington, D.C. are reopened and being used. So many people are still working out of their homes. With that said, though, that makes them even more anxious to get back out and shop at their favorite stores and visit their downtown and support their community. And I guess the only thing I'd end this slide with is that empathy still matters. Everybody's gone through a lot in the last 2 years, and there's been years, everybody has a struggle you have no idea they're living with. And you just have to be aware of that and be kind. That's the best way to approach everything and everybody, is with kindness. And people are ready to talk again. They want to have conversations. You got to be ready to be conversational, and you got to be a one-of-a-kind business. But empathy matters. So what should you do? What should you be doing now to prepare yourself for the rest of 2022? Well, it's a perfect time, the fourth quarter, and hopefully you had a successful fourth quarter. I think the National Retail Federation said we had about a 10% increase over last year. So many businesses have pivoted quite well and are actually doing much better than they did the previous 2 years. So we're on the right track. Again, if you're still open and doing business, you probably did a good job of pivoting. But know this, the average small business has only 8 weeks of working capital put aside, and many, many have less. So if you had a decent, good holiday season, a good fourth quarter, it's really time to set up a capital account where that money is stashed away for the future when you need it, if you need it. So it's a perfect time to build up your cash reserves and to put the money aside for a rainy day. What are the 3 big buckets of expenses for a small business that you need money for? Well, here are the 3 primary buckets. One is cost of goods sold. So you got to have money to buy new inventory. And I'm going to suggest that if you have inventory left over from last year, seeing if you can exchange it toward newer product. So you have cost of goods sold. You need money to buy your inventory. Secondly, you need money for payroll. It's one of your big expenses, and it's one of the most challenging pieces of moving forward in 2022 is the whole notion of hiring people and having people on board and having people willing to work with the general public and with the service business. So, retail, restaurants, and hospitality all are service-oriented business, which is high customer contact, whether it be on the internet or whether it be physically. It's all about contact with the customer. So you have to be willing to do that. And there are people over the last 2 years have decided that's not what they want to do anymore. They want to do something else. And people are starting to look at owning their own businesses going forward. So people are leaving their corporate jobs and deciding this is not what I want to do. I'd rather work for myself and be an entrepreneur and own my own business. So that's happening quite a bit recently. So we'll talk about that some in a minute. The last bucket is rent or mortgage. I mean, it's the owning or renting or leasing your space to do business out of. So that's the third big bucket. So the buckets are cost of goods sold, payroll, and rent or mortgage. So you got to have money, and you've got to have a plan. You've got to look at your data, know your customers' buying power, buying patterns, and knowing your numbers. And the one number that I tell every business owner they need to have on the tip of their tongue is their cash flow break even. What is the monthly number that I have to hit to pay my overhead? What is that number? And then I recommend that you back into it. So if you know what the monthly number is, and you know what your average ticket is, which you should be able to easily get out of your point of sale system, you need to know how many transactions you need to have monthly at your average ticket to break even. So that's your first hurdle, is to break even and not have to go into your cash reserves to keep your doors open. So that's the big hurdle, is getting and moving into profitability. And for many for many entrepreneurs, for many small business owners, it may take a couple years before you can actually afford to pay yourselves. So that's the average, by the way. It takes 2 years for a new business to just get known by enough people and generate enough volume to be break even. So that's the number you need to live, eat, sleep, and dream about. And that's what happens when you own your own business. It's 24 hours a day. It's always there. So this freedom that you may be looking for when you own your own business could be momentary because you're married or you're wed to your business, and your business is every day and it's 24/7. And with the virtuality of business and the internet and having e-commerce, it's 24 hours a day doing business. You can do business 24 hours a day. So knowing your numbers and using those numbers to manage your business is extremely important. So let's take inventory of where we stand right now. Hold on. I wanted to move this little box over here, and then I'll go back a slide. So the big picture, let's talk about, so you have a 30,000 foot view of your business, and then you have this view that happens from within the store that happens day in and day out. So the big picture is what's happening overall for retail. And I think there's a couple things we need to talk about for retail beyond the COVID virus, which is inflation. Inflation is running at a 40-year high. It's really run away. It's something we'll have to grapple with. I think gas now is 50% more than it was a year ago. And you got to think about when the consumer is spending 50% more for just food and gas, then that's less discretionary income to sell or spend in your favorite community stores. So inflation's having an impact. The supply chain is having an impact. Our relationship with China is having an impact. There's talk of Russia and Ukraine and possible conflict there. So you have war possibly to worry about. Runaway inflation, then hiring will be a big issue going forward, and finding good employees. And then where's your overall niche headed in terms of what category you're in? And is it a category of the future? The best example I have for most of us is, if you were in the video rental business, that is a has-been business. That's a perfect example. If you want a crystal clear picture of a business that has come and gone, even the CD business isn't what it was with all the streaming that's going on. So, know that there are things happening from a technology standpoint and from an everyday living standpoint that have changed forever. So you have to really think about how that's affected your core categories and whether you need new ones and whether you need to shed yourself of some of the businesses you were in the past. The other opportunistic way to look at things is two things. One is there may be opportunities within your own town of businesses that haven't made it through the pandemic, that had categories that were very, very good sellers. And has anyone in town picked up those lines or those categories to sell in their store? Because that's a void. That's a category. There are a number of categories probably being underserved in your town. And the smart entrepreneurs are looking at those as new revenue streams. So part of pivoting is not just changing the way you currently do business, but finding new revenue streams to supplement your business from past years. So it may be taking on a whole new complexion based on where your niche is heading and what the forecast is for overall retail. What resources do you have to help you with this? Well, the National Retail Federation is a great resource for information and for reports and for research and for what's happening in the overall industry of retail, restaurants, and hospitality. And then again, I have to emphasize that you have the SBDC, the Small Business Development Centers. I think there's 28 offices, 27 or 28 offices in Virginia alone. And I think there's, I don't know, 1,200 across the United States. I think that's the number that we always talk about at the national convention. So, and again, they're part of the SBA, and they're usually have a host institution and then local hosts as well. And all their service to you, for the most part. There are some training sessions that cost a little bit of money, but most of what they do, which is their one-on-one counseling, is at no cost to you. They're non-judgmental. They won't make fun of you for your ideas. And they're totally 100% confidential. So no one's going to know about your business beyond the advisor that helps you. So that's a big part of it. But use the SBDC to help you through these, difficult past 2 years and what's going forward. So you got that 30,000-foot view of your business, the big picture. And then the small picture is what's going on in your four walls and what's going on with your website. So what's hot, what's not, what's selling, what isn't. Can you exchange any of your inventory for new products based on it being passé or no longer important for your primary customer? Is your primary customer still the same person? So, I believe that small stores, independently owned stores, rely heavily on their loyal customers that they can count on. So it's real important that you know who that is and what their buying habits are. And if they've changed dramatically, how you can change your business to better serve them. And then take data and look at it. What sold well? What didn't sell well? What do you have too much of? What's dead as a doornail? I tell my clients, nothing should have a birthday in your store, meaning if you've owned it for a year or more, it's time to turn it in to cash for more product that'll sell, that's more contemporary, that's more important in today's world than it was 2 years ago. So the small picture is analyzing the numbers and what's selling and what isn't. And again, merging a e-commerce offer into what you do in your physical store. So I'd go forward to say you have two types of customers right now. You have the customer that's just dying to shop with you again and loves your store for what it is, loves your store for your secret sauce, which is what you do differently and better than anybody else. And the fact that you and your staff treat them like family, they're dying to shop that way again. And you know that the shop small, support your neighbors, friends, colleagues, and relatives that have stores and shop with your community is still very, very popular and probably more popular than ever. So shop small, shop local is alive and well. So you have a customer that wants to come out and experience the whole shopping process with you again because they loved it in the past. The other customer probably discovered you on the internet while they were shopping the last 2 holiday seasons from their home. And they learned, even baby boomers learned how to use the internet to shop. So you have a customer that found you on the internet, may have not visited your store yet, but plans to, and may be mission oriented. more, I found what I want on your website. So I want to use, buy online, pick up curbside, buy online, pick up in the store, buy online, have you mail it to me, buy online, have you deliver it to me, or buy online and pick it up in the store. So you have a customer that's more mission oriented. Then you have a customer that's bored. You have a customer that's lonely, and you have a customer that wants to browse and shop and have a great time and be entertained by shopping in your store. So you have two different customers out there right now, and that's an opportunity for you to grow your business through the people that found you through shopping over the internet. So let's talk about three things that you need to think about and enact right now for a rest of successful 2022. Plan. I mean, that's going to be a theme today. Don't launch in a vacuum. You look closely at your numbers and your inventory and your marketing and engagement strategies. What worked? What didn't? What was easy? What's hard? What risks were worth it? What that you started doing, you should stop doing because it's not working? Or what have you tried that's new, that works very well, and how can you capitalize on that? So you got to be taking risks, and you got to be making mistakes, because without risk, without trying new things, without looking at new opportunities, if you don't move forward, you're stuck in the same place that you've always been in. And what are the most dangerous words for American small business? Well, we've always done it this way. It's always worked in the past. Doesn't hold water anymore. The world has changed around us. And not only because of the pandemic, but because we're 2 years further in to history and the world. And we know all the things that have changed. The only thing that I can promise you, the only thing I can say with 100% conviction is, above all, expect the unexpected. We just don't know what's coming down the pike anymore. We didn't know what was going to hit us up the side of the head 2 years ago. Some made it, some didn't. Some are doing better than ever because they changed their business with the changing dynamics. And part of that is marketing and how you talk and reach your customers. So the internet's become more important than ever. And if you don't see it as an opportunity to do e-commerce, then you should see it as an opportunity to market and talk and engage your customer over the internet. So social commerce, your Instagram and Facebook are as important as ever. And your website is beyond all your biggest marketing tool and another piece of your commerce. And you should be able to take your top 20% product, the 80-20 rule, your top 20%, you should get that up on your website. And there's plenty of great sites to use. Shopify is one of my favorites in terms of a e-commerce software platform. And remember, if you're doing e-commerce, you're dealing with two inventories now. You have an online inventory and you have your in-store inventory. And it's real important that you have a tool, point of sale system that can help you manage those two and manage them effectively. Your customer, as I said, has changed. They're people just like me and you. And look at what you've gone through in the last 2 years, outside your business. They're not always predictable. They're genuinely supportive of small and local business. But guess what? The customer that shops with you expects big box perks because Amazon has provided a vehicle or a platform where people can pretty much get what they want instantaneously. So don't think the customer believes that because you're a small independently owned store that you can ship something when you get around to it, that you can use, the Pony Express to get their product to them. They want easy returns. They want quick shipping. They want, one of the things that e-commerce has done is, especially after the holiday seasons are over, is returns are much higher when people shop on the internet than they are if they come in, see, try on, and look at product, even when they're gift buying during the fourth quarter. There's less returns when the product is bought physically in the store. So returns can be huge after a big virtual Christmas season. So know and expect bigger returns, and have procedures and policies in place so that you can handle your returns effectively and get the transaction completed from your customer contactless and frictionless. Make it easy. The other thing is customers aren't always consistent. So there's a socio-economic divide that's larger than it's been in the last 10 years. And divide means the haves versus the have-nots. So the top 5% in the country is as wealthy as they've ever been. And they've had opportunities to invest and buy real estate and make money on their investments. So the top 5% is buying luxury goods. Luxury goods are hot for that top 5%. And then you have the middle class and the lower class that are very value driven today, and load inflation on top of that and the cost of gas and food. And we're looking at a customer that's looking for value and deals and good prices and things like that. So the middle, that used to be the middle class, which is what a lot of our inventory was geared toward, has dried up. And some of your categories just are no longer important. So you got to be looking at what's selling and what isn't, and what do I need to get and what I need to get rid of. So this economic divide has caused, and made the complexion of shopping a little different than it was the past few years, or previous to the past 2 years. Hiring your team, hiring in challenging times. You may have to look at beyond traditional selling roles. You may have to look beyond 8-hour shifts. You may have to look beyond what you used to hire people to do. So one of the things about a service industry is you tend to be open longer hours than most. And, there is a predominant change in the way people think about their work-life balance today. Not only are younger folks and millennials and Generation Z and X changed in the way the average job only lasts a couple years now, and people move on to the next job. This idea of working for the same company for 20 or 40 years is practically outdated at this point. So you have people that are more concerned, or certainly more concerned than we were years ago about, how much time do they want to spend working, and how much time do they want to spend on other things and living their lives and spending more time with their family and being there for their children, who half of them in the last couple of years have been educated at home. So the whole living process has changed. So you got to think differently. And one of the best ways to determine what you should be doing for your staff is talk to your current staff and find out what they're looking for in terms of what you offer them. And there may be positions that don't involve them waiting on the general public. You may have a position that is full-time e-commerce and following that process and packaging and shipping and getting the carriers to pick up the goods and shipping and handling returns. So you may have the whole inventory management piece that you didn't have before. And then with the importance of social marketing and social commerce, you maybe have a position that's focused on your website and fulfilling e-commerce and growing e-commerce and working on a marketing campaign and customer engagement that happens over the internet. You may have positions for retirees that are looking for opportunities to be a greeter or do your local delivery. So, think about this out of the box a little bit and think about creative ways to get people hired. And you may have shifts that are only 4 hours long, but that's what the employee can give you. And that's what they're looking for. So you really do need to rethink about how you structure your staffing and how you structure your schedule and scheduling imaginatively and creatively, and thinking about job descriptions that may be a little different in the past. But what I do want to emphasize, and I think we'll emphasize that, the last slide today is about your mindset. You have to be passionate and excited and enthusiastic about your business. And I know that's hard after the 2 rough years we've been through, but you've got to reach down in deep inside and think to yourself, this is why I do what I do, and this is why it's important to me. And you've got to have your staff thinking the same way. They've got to be as bought in as you are. And as Sir Richard Branson from Virgin Airlines always said, is happy employees treat customers better than unhappy ones do. So, the staffing piece is big, and working on your business, not just in your business, is important. And I know how difficult that is from a reality standpoint. Sometimes the owner is 50% of the coverage and has to work in the store, not on the store. But the best, most successful owners take time to step back and work on the business, not just in the business. And the other thing that's incredibly important, and you've heard me talk about it in the past, is coopetition. Working together as a town and working together as cooperators. And those are people that help each other and have events, and the whole town has events. So, the next seminar is about how to get the events going again, and how to make the downtown exciting, and how to reopen and grand reopen if you have to. I hope that we get to the point where the pandemic has taken such a second seat in our thinking that we are talking about a brand new world, a grand reopening, but is flat in the middle of the next normal, because it's never going to be the same as it was pre-pandemic. It's just changed too much. So let me try to move this picture again. But here I am coming back to the numbers again. So I want you reevaluating, sharpening your pencil, looking at all your costs, looking at your big buckets, how to make those smaller, looking at payroll, retraining people, new job descriptions, how to get it done with fewer people by necessity, not only because it's more cost effective to do it that way, but you just may not be able to hire as many people. So variable costs of goods sold, negotiating with your suppliers and vendors, negotiating terms for payment. Where are your hidden costs? Subscriptions, services, Do you really need that service that exchanges your, your doormats and your carpets once a month? Do you need all the magazine services that you get? What have the anticipated costs been? I mean, how much more has it cost you to ship your product to your customers from years past because of more robust e-commerce sales? So you have tons of expenses, and then you have your largest cost, payroll and rent or mortgage. So, it may seem like I'm beating a dead horse, but it's so incredibly important that you're as efficient. And I've been told many times in the past, especially in the restaurant business, it's a business about the pennies. I mean, that's how important it is to look at costs and look at gross margins and look at profit margins and know that you can cover your break-even costs, your cash flow break-even, and make money and pay yourself. Because in the end of the day, I would think that many of you are looking for this as a way to support your family and support your household. And it's a business, a way of living. But everybody's definition of success is different. You may be financially set. Your spouse may have a great job that pays for all your home expenses. So, your definition of success may be providing this service to your town and community. That's your definition of success. So for everybody, it's different. You ought to know what it is and remind yourself why you're doing what you do and why you've chosen it as a way of doing business. And it's incredibly important. So take a step back. Are sales and income at the current level a concern? Do you have loans coming due? Can you make the most of another downturn? In your spare time, I suggest you run a couple pro formas. Just use an Excel spreadsheet and plug in what happens to everything if I have a 10% decrease in sales. What happens to everything if I have a 20% decrease in sales? And then do the flip side too, because there's as many people that have had 10% and 20% increases in business as there have been those that have lost business. So can I support a 20% increase in business? Do I have the inventory? Do I have the wherewithal to get the inventory? Do I have enough people? Do I have enough staffing? Do I have enough square feet? And some businesses have relooked at their footprint. Do I need this many square feet? Do I need more square feet? Could I share my space with somebody? Could I cut and slice and skin this cat a little differently than I have in the past? So run some pro formas on what ifs and do those scenarios and see what it does to the complexion of your business. I think you ought to have a weekly one-pager that talks about the revenue goals for the week, what the revenue streams are, where it's coming from. Was it coming from e-commerce or is it coming from in-store? What are my weekly expenses look like? Am I running above my payroll budget or behind it? What is my open to buy, which is the amount of money you can afford to spend on inventory? When will it arrive? How long does it take to get inventory? And then having run those break-even cash flow projections, working back into the expense numbers. So see where you're currently at, see where the projection is taking you, and know this, that most of this can be automated through your point of sale system. So again, look at your data and look at the numbers. And a lot of it can be predicted, a lot of it can be forecasted for you through a good, robust point of sale system. What's the competitive landscape look like in 2022? Are there new opportunities? Do a SWOT analysis for your inventory, for your overall industry sector. What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? What are my opportunities? What are my threats? Collective wisdom for not only your industry, but for your overall town and other people that could help you do business, doing partnerships with other retailers and restaurants in town, and working as all boats rise with the tide. The better a town works together, the better the town does, the better the individual businesses do. So work, and again, small towns are event driven. So what events do you have coming up? Not only from a town-wide perspective, but what events are you ready to do within your own store? And you need to create a buzz about them on your internet and on your social media and on your website. So creating a buzz for your events. How has the customer changed? How the customer will continue to change? Are your products and services still relative to your customer? Are they relevant? What are you looking for your customers? What are your customers looking for you to provide? How different it is it from the past? What new categories do you have that are hot? What categories you have that are no longer hot that you ought to be working through to sell that inventory and turn it into cash so you can buy more of what's selling? Are there things that you need to invest in terms of your store, physical plant, point of sale, and internet offers? And how good is your website? And could it be better? And should you be working on a more robust e-commerce site? And then be looking down the road. What's coming down the pike? And will you be ready for it? So I've talked about that, having a plan B, looking at different ways to plan the future. And, I hope what you're hearing me paint is a picture of, what I promise you with 100% commitment. What I can tell you is there'll be change. And those that change most effectively with how the consumer changes and how your industry changes and how your town changes and how our overall general health changes will depict whether you continue with plan A or switch to plan B. And hopefully plan B is a plan that takes advantage of your newfound success as we climb out of the pandemic. Difficult subject, but one that sometimes has to be talked about. And as an SBDC, we're not in the business helping people close down and go out of business. We're in the business trying to help people survive and thrive in their towns and in their industry. But there's a right way and a wrong way if you have to exit your business. And there's a way to overcome the resistance of a mindset shift from failure to protecting your legacy. And there's a cost-effective way to close things down, and there's a non-cost-effective way to do it. So certainly go to your SBDC and ask for counseling if you're considering an exit strategy or a succession strategy. Is it time to sell the business? Is it time to pass the business on to the next generation? And I've counseled many stores that are 3 and 4 generations old. So, if it is a subject that needs to be explored, then you should set a meeting with your counselor at your local SBDC and talk a little bit about what the future looks like for you and how to make decisions that are most effective going forward. And then, opening hopefully because you had a decent fourth quarter, opening a capital reserve account and even have a budget line on your expense line items for capital reserves, and even set up a different bank account where that expense is allocated. So have a reserve account that's not easily, because the tendency is, I could use a little more money this month. I'll just dip into my before you know it, your savings will be gone. Most businesses only have 8 weeks of savings put aside anyway. So that's the downside of looking at the future. The upside, hopefully you've been able to pivot well and have an upside and build on that upside. You may need money, and the SBDC is well versed on how to help you find money, SBA loans, how to handle your EIDL and your PPP loans, and what to get forgiven, and how to navigate that difficult process of borrowing money and paying it back, and borrowing money, using it correctly and have it forgiven. All the financial side of running your business. SBDC counselors are experts in and use them. The best time to ask for money is before you need it. There's no such thing as free money. Loans will need to be paid back, and grants usually have tax implications, or pieces of the grant that needs to be paid back based on how you use the money. But the best time to ask for and a good thing to have is a line of credit, and just have it there in case you need it, but don't use it if you don't. And the best time to ask for a line of credit is before you need it, because banks loan money to people that don't need money, because they want someone that has a wherewithal to pay the loan back. That's their business, is loaning money and getting paid back at a profit. So they have a world they live in as well. And then again, notice your mindset. Continue to pivot to move your business forward, but what gets in the way? A fear of doing things differently that will change the look, feel, or culture of your store. Waiting for the right time to make changes. There's never a right time to make changes. There's never an opportune time. I say you go ahead and make the difficult decisions and make them now, and find out what works and what doesn't. Because we're going to move into hopefully a rebound that has COVID behind us, or has COVID as another strain of the flu that we learn to live with, but doesn't have a dramatic catastrophic effect on our overall business like it has in some cases for the last 2 years. But again, I want to repeat that some businesses are doing better than they ever have done, because how well they made changes so that they coincided with their loyal repeat customer, their new customers that have found them through the internet. And then, the whole e-commerce side of your business that might have been non-existent 2 years ago. Good, accurate, up-to-date data is the essential first step to building a resilient business. So you got to know what's going on to have a good mindset, change your mindset, or, shake you into reality. But I know that those with the most positive mindsets, those that use their secret sauce, their personality, they've created a culture within their store that people love to shop in. They feel like family, and that's the most important thing. And it's called a destination statement, actually. A colleague of mine uses this as one of the primary focuses of his consulting business out of Colorado, and it's called a destination statement. But I call it your value proposition. And are you and your staff clear on why your customer should shop with you? What makes you one of a kind? And you have to be able to finish this sentence unlike anybody else finishes it in your town, or in your state, or in your county, or in the country, or in the world, since you're on the internet. I am the only business in and then grab your what you can geography wise, what you can claim. I am the only store in Virginia. I am the only store in the United States. I'm the only store open today that, and you got to be able to name something that you do differently and better and one of a kind, unique from anybody else. And you need to take the time to write that out. And that ought to be something that you know and everybody knows in your store. And it's called, a destination statement, or what is it that I do that sets me apart? And I'll tell you, I can go to any town in America and I'll find you somebody that's doing just fine. And people say, well, most of the town is struggling. I mean, COVID this, COVID that, we've been closed, we've been, no, we wear masks, we don't wear masks, no one knows what, it's been wild and crazy, but some people, some entrepreneurs, some business owners have figured it out and are doing better than ever. And then it's time to celebrate your success, your perseverance, your passion, and your planning. Let's celebrate how hard you've come, and let's celebrate that with your store, your employees, and your good customers. So, it's a time for rejoicing that we're, I think, through the worst part of this whole thing. And I think good things are coming down the pike. And I just want you to be ready for it. I don't want you to be flat-footed. And I don't think you are, because I don't think you'd be open now if you hadn't changed your business or improved on your strengths and doing well or better than you've ever done before. And that has to do with your secret sauce and revisiting your strengths and weaknesses and what makes you so special. So it looks like we have, 3 or 4 minutes left. Kayla, are there any questions in the chat room? I've been talking the whole time. I haven't even looked at the chat room, but hopefully some folks have learned things they didn't know before. But are there any questions? Kayla, you're muted.
Sorry.
There you go.
So it looks like we don't have any questions right now, but we can give people a few minutes while I.
Yeah, and they can email. Do you have an email address for them that they could email a question that they might think of later or not want to do in public?
Yeah, so this email, I'm going to put it in the chat right now. This is for one-on-one counseling or questions. And then if you would like to put your email as well, Mark, I know you've given that at the end of your presentations in the past.
Yeah, well, let me just give it to them verbally. It's mark@thevirginiasbdc.org, but Mark spelled with a C. marc@virginiasbdc.org. And I am doing one-on-one consultations now. I'm doing some of them live and a lot of them virtual. So if you want one-on-one with a SBDC counselor, or you want a one-on-one with me, or you want a one-on-one with both of us, ask for that and we'll schedule something for you.
We've also put a quick poll in the webinar as well. You can provide some feedback on how Mark did today, of course. Someone said, I don't have a question. I wanted to say thanks for the best presentation I've attended so far. So, well,
that's always good to hear. And that's my goal. I have goals too. And my goal is to always leave you a little higher than I found you. So, and I do that with all my webinars and all my counseling appointments. I want to add value to what you know, what you don't know, and how to help you best.
If anyone has any questions, you can pop it again in the Q&A. I'm going to do my little end spiel for everyone to give Mark some time to get any last minute questions. But You will all receive an email with a link to the recording and evaluation and to the slides. If you would like to sign up for upcoming webinars or access recorded webinars, please visit virginiasbdc.org/training and be sure to check out our next webinars coming up this month and next and so on. You can also access our website, the COVID Business Recovery Center, which we developed to help owners not only continue business operations, but to thrive and recover. These resources are designed to be used in collaboration with your local SBDC advisors. And you can sign up for a free and confidential session by emailing help@virginiasbdc.org or via our website.
Kayla, two things coming up from me. I'm going to be working on a Facebook Live that's a short, like 10 or 15-minute presentation. I think we're going to try to do that on the 23rd of February. And the topic is returns and how to handle them and how to be efficient and what the customer's expectations are and, you know, how to get the money back to the customer quickly and how to process them. So a little quick, focused conversation on returns. And then, as I said a little earlier, on the 10th of March, which you keep your eyes peeled for it because we announce any of the webinars that are being done by all our distinct offices throughout the state. Out of Roanoke, we're doing Eventacular, which is how to get you thinking about events again, and you know how to best run events and how they can best support your business and your town going forward. So those two things are coming down the pike. You ought to keep your eyes peeled for.
We do have a question really quick, Mark, if that's okay. What is a good way to get town leaders together to discuss collaborating to make the town center exciting, like Farmville, where I am? I have strong ideas for making restaurants here unique and exciting experiences. So.
Well, I'd use your SBDC. I mean, they're used to running seminars and webinars and different events. So I would try to get a town-wide event put together. What's wrong with the town hall meeting? We're doing that now as we work on a couple towns that are exploring the Main Street program. And we're out interviewing business owners and people that live in the town and people that visit the town, people that are tourists in the town. So the best way to come up with those kinds of ideas is, and if you have a local chamber, ask the chamber to be involved. If you have an economic development department in your town, and you probably have a town council, and try to put together a meeting with them. But the towns that work together, co-opetition, towns that work together do better than towns that don't. So my advice is to get together and talk about it. And I will tell you, at the end of the day, most towns have 2 or 3 people that make it all happen. So one of the projects might be, who is it that we can lean on to try to get some momentum here and try to get something happening? And it's always a half a dozen people that really make a town work. Seems that way anyway, at least for me in the last 13 years of visiting towns.
Awesome. It looks like we have no more questions. So thank you again, everyone. And thank you, Mark, for your presentation.
You're welcome.
And have a
great week. And let's climb out of this funk and get things rocking and rolling again.
Yes. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.